Hello, everyone, and welcome to the course of World History. I am your host, Mr. Samuelson. Today, we are going to be looking at Hinduism and Buddhism, looking at the origins and spread of both of these two faiths. So our essential question, how are the religions of Hinduism and Buddhism founded, and how did they spread? Although religion with Buddhism is kind of a gray area there. Let's get into the lesson. So, origins of Hinduism. The Hindu religion arose through the blend of a lot of different beliefs. So it kind of developed over time as the beliefs of different groups kind of merged together to create the Hindu faith. So it's not like some other religions we know of. It didn't have a founding moment. Now, this religion was formed by the Aryan people who migrated to India from the Caucasus Mountains. So these people originated in the Caucasus Mountain area and traveled through a lot of different regions, picking up a lot of different ideas on the way before settling down in India. Now, the core beliefs of the Hindu faith center around this single universal force called known as the Brahman. Okay, this is a representative image of Brahman. That is the single force in the universe, the all-knowing, all-controlling force. Now, many Hindus practice something called yoga, which is an exercise which calms their body and mind and helps them to unite with this force, this universal force that's all around us. Hindu worship and the practical religion sense of worship includes the worship of many different gods. So there are many, many different Hindu gods, but each one of these Hindu gods is simply an aspect of this universal force. It's an aspect of Brahman. And following the guidance of the Hindu gods bring you closer to an understanding and a oneness with Brahman. So principles of Hinduism. So Hindus believe that the soul can be reincarnated, that we inhabit this body until this body is worn out, and then the soul moves into a new body. It is born again. And this happens again and again until the soul has attained enough karma to be united with Brahman, to be united with this force. So this karma, the force of a Hindu's actions, okay, as you do different actions throughout the day, you build up kind of this karmic energy, and how much you acquire during your lifetime determines your station in your next life. Okay, depends what kind of life you will be born into. So a little bit more on karma and dharma. So dharma is the divine law. Okay, it is the idea that you exist to perform your role in society, and that you are born into a specific social role. Right? So right from the moment you're born, you have this role in society, and your job is to fulfill it well. Now, doing this duty, doing your role and doing it well, means that you gain this karmic energy, you gain karma, and you move closer toward Brahman in the next life. You're now accumulating karma, that positive energy. So these Hindu roles or duties are actually determined, what your role and what your duty is determined by your caste. Your caste is your social hierarchy. It's your level in society. And they have this big complex caste system. So Hindus are born into a caste system which determines social status, and where you are born is where you spend your entire life. Hindus don't get to change their caste through their lifetime. They can't acquire millions of dollars and increase themselves in social status and now hobnob with the top. No, it doesn't really work that way. It's not a meritocracy in that way. The only way that you can change your caste is to have good karma, to do your duty, do your role in society, and move up in your next life. So you see here the hierarchy of the caste system. So down here we have people who are actually outside of the caste system. They're called the untouchables, and they are literally outcasts. They have no real official role in a Hindu society. So they're left to do the types of jobs and duties that nobody else would want to do. And then we move up into the labor force. then into the merchants and businessmen and landowners, skilled workers. Up above that, you have your kings, rulers, and your warriors. And at the very top of the system is the priests. Now, spread of Hinduism. Hinduism didn't spread like most other religions. It's not really a faith that goes out and tries to convert people. Instead, it's simply a way of life for the Hindus. It's more than just a religion, it's how they live. Hinduism did not spread through that conversion process, and it merely just spread through migration and conquest. So we do see where it mostly started, which was northwest India, and then throughout India as a whole. And then as people migrated from India for trade or conquest reasons into Southeast Asia, it spread down to these areas too, where it has largely been replaced by Buddhism, which we'll get to later. Hindus continue to live in South Asia, and there are a few other Indian communities throughout the world, but mostly Hindus live in India. All right, so Buddhism, our other religion for today. While the Hindu religion evolved over time, Buddhism can be traced back to one person in much the same way that Islam and Christianity can be traced back to one person. And that one person, that founder of Buddhism, was known as Siddhartha Gautama. Okay, now Siddhartha Gautama goes by a different name now. This was the historical person, but then he became the enlightened one, or the Buddha. So Buddhism follows the teachings of the Buddha, or the enlightened one. Who is Buddha? Who was the enlightened one? It was Siddhartha Gautama. And it did begin in the mid-500s BCE, so this is an old religion. So a little bit more about Siddhartha Gautama. Siddhartha was born into a wealthy ruling family. Okay, he had everything that he wanted in life. Suffering and pain were almost non-existent as he grew up always having the most delicious foods, always being engaged both mentally and physically, and leading the happy life that a child would when born into such privilege. But when he became aware of the suffering of others, when he left his own house and saw that not all other people had the privileged life that he did, he became obsessed with this need to cure the suffering of others. And after an extended period of meditation, which he did as a part of his Hindu practice, he was born into Hindu India, he attained enlightenment. Now, this was an extended meditation, days and days. I forget how many, but you don't need to know that. And attained this enlightenment, this realization on how to end suffering. And this leads him to abandon his Hindu teachings and start to teach instead about nirvana. No, not that nirvana. There's a different nirvana out there. We're not talking about the band today. We're talking about the state where the fires of attachment, aversion, and ignorance extinguish, and one experiences true peace and happiness. Buddhism is about denying attachments to the material world. It's about taking these physical things and realizing that they have no real importance, no real meaning. And worse than that, all pain and poverty and sorrow, they're all caused by our attachment to these things. And that when we're sad, it's because of these attachments, because we don't have what we want, or something that we had was taken from us. Buddha taught that without these worldly cares, pain and suffering can be forgotten. We don't worry about that stuff anymore, and by not worrying about it, it can't affect us as much. And the Buddhists who can successfully remove these cares are said to have achieved nirvana, the end of suffering. Yes, Kurt Cobain, we miss you, man, and it would have been nice. I'm sorry you couldn't end your suffering. All right, so how do you do it? Well, the first thing about Buddhism is the Four Noble Truths. This is a central starting place of the Buddhist way of life. And the Four Noble Truths start with 1, the realization that ordinary life is full of suffering. It's just a part of life. 2, Suffering, that suffering that's a part of our lives, is caused by our desire to satisfy ourselves. It's caused by our desires. It's because we want things that we don't have. We want to keep the things that we have. And so we suffer in these desires. The third truth is that we can end these sufferings by abandoning selfish goals and by seeing others as simply an extension of ourselves. And once others are an extension of ourselves, we want to end their suffering too. So that leads us to the most important of these noble truths. That is, how do we do all this? How do we end our suffering? How do we abandon these wants and desires and achieve nirvana? So the most important of these noble truths is the fourth one. The way to end desire is by following the eightfold path, sometimes called the middle path. So what the heck is the old eightfold path? Well, 8 different ways to view life and lead to enlightenment. Okay, it's about doing things correctly. The right view is seeking the truth. Okay, not accepting things as, they're told to you, but seeking the real truth. The rightness of intention is freeing your mind of evil. Okay, eliminate those bad thoughts. Keep them out of your thoughts and act with positive intention. The right speech. Think before you speak. And don't say something that's going to hurt others. Right action. Work for the good of others. Okay, don't act selfishly. Act in a way that will help other people. Right livelihood is to respect life. This is all form of life. We need to have respect for the different forms of life out there and make sure that we don't do anything to harm or strip somebody of life unless totally necessary. The right effort, that is to resist the evil of lack of effort, of laziness, of sloth. Right concentration is the practice of meditation. Clear your mind, focus your mind, and prepare for every day. And then right mindfulness is controlling of your thoughts. Don't let your thoughts wander into unproductive or negative territory. Be in control of yourself. And if you can do these, then you can achieve nirvana. Best of luck to you. So the spread of Buddhism. Following Buddha's death, his followers spread his message. Okay, so there were others who went out and said, hey, Buddha had this great idea. Let's share it with you and help you to end your suffering. So this is a part of the Buddhist faith, spreading Buddhism in order to help others end their suffering. In the 200s BC, Ashoka, who's this powerful ruler in India, converted to Buddhism. And as a part of his Buddhist faith, wanting to end the suffering others, he spread Buddha's message and he financed the expansion of monasteries and did a whole bunch to help the poor in India to be a good Buddhist and to spread the Buddhist teachings and end the suffering of others. This conversion, which took place in India, and Buddhism really did have its roots in India, then spread throughout the world, went into Afghanistan, Tibet, over into China, Korea, Japan, Southeast Asia, and in many of those areas it remains strong today. However, Hinduism did reassert itself in India proper, and Buddhism dwindled there. So India today is still mostly Hindu, with some Buddhism still in Ceylon, Sri Lanka. It's kind of half and half. And then most of this area of the world, if they are practicing a religion, or in this case, Buddhism is kind of more of a philosophy than a religion, it is more Buddhism in East Asia. All right. Well, that's it for today. This was a long one. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something, and I will see you next time. Farewell.